Benet's Bloody Bits.
Hi, my name is Jason Benet, and welcome to Benet's Bloody Bits. For over a decade, Bloody Disgusting has been produced in the VHS franchise. I've had some I've liked and some I've liked a little bit less, but one of my favorites, if not the favorite, is VHS 99. And one segment in particular really stood out, and it stars Emily Sweet, and she was in the Castle Freak remake as well. And I have interviewed her before for Delirium magazine, but I wanted to bring her on here on YouTube and do a vidcast. And she was nice enough to stop by, and we're going to discuss those two films as well as Eight Eyes, which is an upcoming picture from Vinegar Syndrome. Here we go. Thank you, Emily, for coming on. I appreciate your time and sitting down and talking with me.
Of course, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm curious, when you were growing up, whether you're a kid or a teenager, what movies were you watching? What got you into cinema?
Well, oh man, I watched Major League, The Sandlot, The Last Unicorn, a lot of Scooby-Doo, a lot of just things that are surprising to watch since I love horror so much now. I never really watched horror back then. I watched a lot of wholesome things back then. But I was always drawn to acting in movies and cinema ever since I was really, really little. It's all I've ever wanted to do. And so I don't think I really cared what I was watching. I just was always so fascinated by whatever I saw on the screen.
What horror films were some of the first ones, like, that you kind of like rewatched them and they became your favorites?
So this is very surprising to a lot of people, because if you know me, you know that like my life revolves around horror and the genre and Halloween and spooky things. But it wasn't until maybe 2013 that I really got into it. And so I love this story. I just love the story. So I was in the circus. I joined the Wallendas as a tightrope walker, and I did the sway pole. And I had learned a lot about the freaks in the freak show, if you will. And so American Horror Story Freak Show just was about to air. And so I had left the circus and I was like, oh, I had like learned about these people, I'm just coming out from the circus. I'm going to try and watch it. Like I got up all this courage to watch it. And I remember I watched the first episode and I was like, well, that wasn't scary at all. Like that was kind of awesome. I loved it. And so then I just like went down this deep rabbit hole of horror. And so some, favorites of mine are Reanimator. The only horror movie to have ever scared me was High Tension, the French movie High Tension. I love that one. And then newer favorites of mine, Aunt Timpson did Come to Daddy a few years ago with Elijah Wood. It's like, it used to be billed as horror. Now it just might be suspense thriller. I'm not sure, but that I love the Evil Deads. I love Hellraiser. I love the Scream franchise. I love Full Moon does a lot of things that I love. The original Castle Freak, Reanimator, From Beyond, Puppet Master, like all of these movies that I just love.
So I'm curious, with High Tension, that was that popularity of the French horror, the extreme horror of the time. Did you just watch High Tension, or did you watch Inside and Martyrs? Very brutal.
I've watched, Irreversible. I've watched Martyrs, Climax I've seen. I do love a lot of French horror. I love a lot of foreign horror. They go places that I feel like the United States maybe isn't allowed to go or doesn't dare go. I'm not sure, but I do love French horror.
I think Martyrs is the one, beautifully made and crafted, but man, I can't watch it ever again. It's just a one and done, just because there's no fantasy to it. It's all based in reality. And it just, unfortunately, that little wave didn't last long, but those 5 or 6 films really stuck out.
Yeah, I know. I've seen Martyrs a few times. I haven't seen the remake of it, the newer version, only the French one. And my friend Canyon introduced it to me, and then I watched it. I made my friend David watch it, and it's so funny, the reactions of different movie lovers with Martyrs specifically. Some people are like, "Oh wow, that was really good." don't need to see it again. Other people are just like, why did you make me watch that? I never, I want to erase that from my mind. And other people are like, wow, that was amazing. I want to watch it again and like watch it for, the crew, on the crew side of things. Like, oh, I wonder how they filmed that, the practical effects, all that stuff.
So you love horror. You've been watching films forever. I'm always wondering, to become an actor, is there actually schooling involved, or is this just a matter of getting your foot in the door regardless of your age or your experience?
So I did go to school for it, but you don't have to. I think so much of acting, it's such a difficult industry because there's a lot of talent involved, luck involved, what projects are being made at the time of how old you are or whatever. I think anyone can get into it. I think, with representation and some movies under your belt, you can go further. But I mean, you always hear these stories of, it was the first audition I ever did, and I booked this huge major thing. But I did go to school for it, and so it's again always something that I've wanted to do, and so for me it just was a no-brainer to get a degree in acting.
Do you think in this era of social media where you can get your name and face out there, it's easier? Do you think maybe back pre-digital age, or does it not matter?
I think it. I love it and I hate it because there are times when I've heard back from casting like, oh, we're looking for someone with a major following, for like 100K plus followers or something. I think it's great to network. I think it's fun to and a great tool to show, oh, this is what I've been working on. Here's the trailer. It comes out, all the promotion, marketing. I think that's helpful. And it's helpful to connect with other people in the industry, like especially the horror industry. So I have a love-hate relationship with it. I don't do a lot with my social media. I should do more. I just am not good at it. I think that's another thing. I'm just not good at it. I don't know the algorithms. I don't know when to post. I don't know any of that. But so it's helpful, and that's how I feel about it.
But you're not the first person to talk about the numbers. I want to focus on that because I know on Twitter, which is not what it was, and it's not probably as important as TikTok or Instagram, but there are people that will look, why do you only have 10,000 followers? You need to have 100. But I don't know how people do it, but you can buy followers.
You can, but I think the problem with buying followers is then if you look at their likes, if they have like 200,000 followers and then they only have 200 likes, it's like, well, wait a second. To me, that's just, and whatever. If you buy, that's fine. If you buy them, like people can do whatever they want to do. That's fine. But I always think like, oh, you probably bought those if you have 200,000 followers and only 200 people are then liking your post. I feel like maybe there's some purchased followers there.
No, you're right. I think it might even be an issue on YouTube because you'll see the same thing. Somebody will only get 500 views on a video, but your follower count is a couple 100,000. It doesn't make sense. So I see what you mean about the importance of it. It is, but it's not the end all, the be all.
Sure. What I hope for is that people, if I audition, they just like my audition. They think I'm a good actor and cast me. If they look at my social media, they'll see that I do love horror, or acting or whatever the case may be. And that's always what I hope for, is that my audition is good enough.
Are auditions intimidating? Because I've only seen auditions what I see on movies and TV shows. Do you walk by and see your competition and see, oh, these are the people that are going to come try to get the same job I'm trying to get?
That used to be the case, more so pre-COVID, when you were still having in-person auditions. I actually don't think, I might have had one in-person audition since 2020 or since like everything reopened. It's all just been self-tapes. But prior to that, it was interesting. So I did a movie, I think it was in 2019, called The Final Level: Escaping Rancala. And myself, a blonde, this woman, Tiana, who is a brunette, and then this woman, Jessica, who is a redhead, we were all going for the same role. And so it was funny, just like, well, if you get the role, then then they must want like a blonde, or they must want a redhead. It's funny, they did cast all three of us, but just in different roles. Or sometimes, yeah, you go in and you see people, 100 blondes, and you're like, oh gosh, well, okay, well, all right. It can be very intimidating, but and there's just something about being in the room, I think, and like the nerves and the adrenaline. But then there's also something, in the safety of your own home, doing a self tape. If you mess up, no big deal, you can do it again. So I think there's pros and cons to both of them.
And I'm sure auditions for you are similar to interviews for me, where the most difficult part is the suspense of leading up to it. But once you get to it, then you don't think about it. You're in your element, you're in the moment. Do you
Yeah.
feel like that's true? Once you get there, it's kind of
I think so. I think there's also the hard thing about auditioning is if, say, the role is hanging off a cliff or something. Well, you don't really have a cliff to hang off of. And you're not going to just like pretend to be I mean, maybe some people do. I don't know. That's the beauty of auditioning. I guess people can do whatever they want. But it is hard to, some casting directors like when you mime or use props. Others do not. Others just like, you're standing and you're not really moving too much. It's all just such a crapshoot sometimes. I think it's like, I don't know, you just have to do your best and be confident in what you do and then send it in.
Is it then the film you're talking about? It's an asylum, the asylum film?
Yes, yeah, it was an asylum film.
I mean, and so we're probably talking of a week shoot, 10 days, low budget. Generally,
So that shoot was 6 days, one take, basically. That's basically what we got was 6 days. And then I think maybe we had a pickup day like a few months later, a few weeks later. But yeah, it was 6 days, and then basically we only got one take. It was a different experience for sure. A fun experience, but a different one for sure.
So knowing that schedule, we have to be talking 14, 18-hour days?
They were long days. They were probably 14 hours. The first day we shot, we did 32 pages, which is absolutely unheard of. So, but I mean, we did it. And, I think on a movie like that, everyone knows what they're getting into. It's like, okay, we know we have 6 days. We know we have one take. So everyone's very prepared, and you just gotta go in with a great attitude and do the best you can.
I've been an extra, a background person in a couple of those films. I wasn't even doing anything most of the day, and I was so tired. So I have mad respect because everything's about setup, and what you actually film is very short.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go on to the next scene, got to adjust the lighting and the setup. So it's, even if you're not doing anything like in front of the camera, you're still there. You have to be there. And when they hit action, you have to bring it, right?
It is. And the other exhausting thing about it is, if it's like a really, I don't know, say you're crying or you're screaming or whatever, it's okay. We're going to get it from this angle, crying and screaming, this angle, crying and screaming, this angle, crying and screaming, this, and then we're going to flip it. And then we're going to go to your partner, your scene partner or whatever. And then you don't want to give them nothing to work off of. So then you're trying, it's very exhausting. It's fun, but it's exhausting.
I believe is that called coverage? Will they do that with coverage? Yeah. I watched it on set and I never knew, but it makes sense because they got to get the back, they got to get a front, the sides, and then they have to edit it when it's done.
Yes.
So you said you liked Castle Freak growing up. So obviously you're familiar with Stuart Gordon directing it, Jeffrey Combs and Barbara Crampton being in it. So we have a reimagining, not a remake.
That's right.
Right? A reimagining of it. So how did you get to be in the new version of Castle Freak?
So that was my agent, Leo. He, I've always been a fan of the movie. And so when he's like, hey, I have an audition for you. And I was like, Castle Freak. I was like, what? I didn't know that they were reimagining it. I actually had no idea. And so I auditioned for Rebecca, and then ended up being booked for Shelly. And I mean, I had an amazing experience. I'd never been to Albania before. You know, I got to meet and work with Barbara Crampton, who's a saint, and you know, Tate Steinsick and Fangoria and Matt Justin and Seeger with Not a Funeral Home. I mean, just so many wonderful, amazing people. I had a blast.
And that didn't look like a set, right? That looked like a real castle, or it didn't look.
Yes. So it's not my story, but Justin, one of the producers, it's his story. He says that he never usually, you know, comments or reacts to anyone's reactions or reviews or anything like that, you know, on YouTube, on the trailer or whatever. He's just like, lets it go. But he said that someone wrote on some reaction or something, some comment, like, man, they couldn't even afford to get a real castle. And that's like the one time Justin was like, actually, it's a real castle. We're in Albania. It's real from the 3rd century. Like, it's real.
Well, you can see watching it.
I
It's not United States. It doesn't look like a cheap set that if you banged on it, it would knock over. I didn't get that at all. I think that's just somebody's not paying attention, because you can see this is not a $5,000 film, and it's just, you know, going to topple over if the wind blows.
Right.
But that's kind of an interesting review. So you got to go to Albania.
Mm-hmm.
Was this a quick shoot, or was this something a little bit more intense?
I don't know how long they actually filmed. I wasn't there the whole time. I think they maybe were there a month, and I was there 2 or 3 weeks. You know, it's been so long. I at least 2 weeks, but maybe 3. I don't remember, but I mean, long enough to really enjoy it and you know, get a good sense of it. I love the people. I love the food. I just loved like the old architecture and buildings. Oh, it was stunning.
Was Barbara Crampton, I know she was a producer. Did you ever see her on set, or was she more behind the
Yes,
scenes?
no, she was there. She was there, and so I met her. I got to talk to her about horror, which was awesome. She helped a lot with characters. You know, if I had a question about something, and you know, I would go to her. I'd go to Tate, the director, and no, she was there every day. She was awesome. She's just as wonderful as you could imagine.
Spoiler alert, we're going to talk about her death in the film. So you should have seen this film by now, but if not, here we go. Can you talk about your death scene and the makeups and the prosthetics and how that went?
Sure. So, I mean, I loved my death scene. I thought it was a great way to go, a very interesting way to go. And yeah, so they had, you know, it's all movie magic. They gave me a couple of prosthetics here because I had, you know, the nipple rip off like in the original. And basically, again, spoiler, you know, the freak just snapped my neck and that's how I went. But I mean, it wasn't, obviously it wasn't me, but they used a head and they like rigged up the head, they rigged up the blood, they rigged up all the things. Practical effects to me is just fascinating and incredible. And I love everything about practical effects. So watching them do that and watching it make it look so realistic, I was just in awe at these people who are able to make these things look so realistic.
And it's nice change of pace that some people will still use a computer when they can obviously go with a makeup artist. So that must have been nice to go, oh, good, I'm going to sit down in a chair, do it, and know it's going to look authentic when it's on screen.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
I have an issue with the CGI when you can use practical. I think enhancing practical effects with CGI is fine, but just like straight CGI, VFX, I'm like, it always looks better when you use practical.
Now, when I last interviewed you, we kind of stopped at Castle Freak. Little did I realize that you were going to be in the next VHS movie, which is VHS 99.
Yeah.
Had you seen the prior films before
I
you got?
Yes. So another franchise that I was like, I mean, Castle Freak isn't a franchise, but I mean, I just adore the original. And so when I auditioned for VHS, I was just like, oh my gosh, like this would be another dream come true to, you know, be a part of that franchise. It's so successful. They're so much fun. And I love ours. I mean, I thought 85 was really good. I thought the first one was really good. I mean, they're all so much fun. Yeah, so I was really, really excited to be a part of it.
So once again, you get to go up in makeup, but this is completely different. Just okay, people. Again, spoiler alert. I'm gonna move on. You get to be Medusa. You get to have like all this makeup that had to have taken hours because that does not look like it'd be something they could just slap on a rubber suit.
No, so it was Patrick McGee's studio right in Burbank and his team. There was, I think, 6 to 8 people working on me. It took like 6.5 hours of standing, applying everything. But I mean, it was the coolest thing. I couldn't even believe what I looked like after, I was done. So I had to go in a few weeks prior. I had to get a head cast, done, and my hands and teeth and all of that. And then that was it. And then they're like, okay, we'll come back and we'll, fit it on you, after we're done molding and everything's, whatever. So I go in and they kind of put the headpiece on, but it wasn't the full headpiece. It was just kind of like a helmet kind of a thing. And like, okay, pop your teeth in. Okay, the teeth fit, cool, good, kind of walk around with this thing on. And it wasn't until the day of that I was shooting that scene that they actually then, put everything on for the first time, the eyes, the ear, the snakes, the skin was my favorite part because those tattoos that you put on, you put water over them and then you peel them off and you have like the tattoo.
The old school ones before the real ones became so common. Yeah.
Yes. So that's basically what they did over my entire body, but with scales, like real, actual scales. It was incredible. I couldn't stop like touching my arms and my legs. I was like, this is just the coolest feeling. It was incredible.
That couldn't be easy to get off because I actually got to be a zombie in the film, and all I did was have makeup on my head. But because I don't have hair, I have a larger canvas, and they were able to put like a gunshot wound in the back. So, long story short, I took a shower and I couldn't get it all off. So, I literally had to tell my wife, who was then my girlfriend, she had to get tweezers and pick at my head. So, how long does it take you to truly get out of that costume or outfit?
So by the time we got back to the studio after we had finished filming, it was maybe, I don't know, 1 a.m., something like that. And it took 3.5 hours to get off. And after about 3.5 hours, I was like, I don't care. I don't care. We have enough off. Over the next week, I'll pick off the little it's fine. Everyone needs to go home. Yeah, because basically, again, it was my entire body. And so you would just kind of peel everything back a little bit and then put alcohol on it, try to peel it back, some more alcohol, peel on alcohol. But I tried to shave as much as my body as I could, but then your hair gets stuck in it, and and then you're ripping hair out, and oh gosh, it was a process to put on and to take off, but 100% worth it. I do it again today.
So it was a work in progress slash you were giving yourself a waxing without realizing it the whole time you're trying to get it off.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But I mean, it was, like I said, it was so worth it. It was incredible. I'm still, when I look at pictures or when I show people pictures, they're like, "That's not you." I'm like, "It's me." And they're like, "Nah, that's not you." I was like, "It is. It's me."
So how excited were you to watch the film? Obviously, your episode. Did you watch it on Shutter? Did you wait till the physical media copy came out?
No, so we had a premiere it premiered at Beyond Fest, and so myself and the other cast, all the young boys in it who I spoiler murder, and then Tyler McIntyre, the director, and a couple of the producers and crew members. We all went to Beyond Fest, and I got to watch it in the theater with. We were sold out. It was incredible. It was just everyone's reaction and hearing the laughs because our VHS like 99 in general was funnier than the other ones. A lot of them had more comedy in them. Then I watched 85 when it came out, and that one was just like strict, like, oh my gosh, there's like a lot of intense moments in 85, and ours was still spooky, and it had definitely scary moments in it and all the gore. but it was certainly funnier. And so it was fun hearing all that laughter and the gasps and the cheering. It was awesome. Tyler McIntyre did a great job, I thought, with ours. Everyone did great. I'm rambling, I'm sorry, but that's the beauty
No,
of
it's okay.
have all these awesome directors coming together and telling their stories. I love it. It was a great experience.
I was trying to think about Medusa in films. I know she was in Clash of the Titans in the remake, Percy Jackson film, and the TV show that just came out on Disney Plus. I'm trying to figure if you're the first person to play Medusa in a horror film. I don't know. I really would have to look it up. I don't know.
I think there's a horror movie. So I have a group chat with the Civil Gore podcast. A bunch of us we love horror, and so we talk a lot about just horror movies that come out or whatever. And one of the hosts, Brian, he sent us a picture of a Medusa, and I think it was maybe called Medusa, but it was like a very low budget from way back when. I don't know. I'm gonna have to go back and check, but I'm not sure.
No, I think you're right. Maybe even in a black and white film. Now that you say the title, I'm thinking, but maybe you're the first Medusa in color.
There you go. We'll go with that.
Who gets totally naked not totally naked, who partial nudity. Because what I was curious with, a lot of actors or actresses won't do nudity. You've been very open to it with Castle Freak and VHS 99. When you look at a script, and does it bother you, or you're just like, I don't care? Because you've obviously haven't had an issue doing it.
Right. Well, for Castle Freak, I just love the original so much, and I wanted to work with Fangoria and Barbara, and I want, you know what I mean? I really wanted to do it. And so I normally probably, if it was a different movie, wouldn't have done that, like that scene. But because it was Castle Freak and because it was all these, the people who I had mentioned, and it was one of my favorite movies, I was like, I'll do it. As far as other nudity goes, I feel, I don't like to do it. It's not my favorite thing to do. I'm never like, yeah, I get to be nude. So I try to now not do it as much as maybe I did when I was first starting out, but I will do it. I think it just depends on the role and the movie and what it is. For VHS 99, I literally, took off my scalp and then was my bones crunched, and then I turned into Medusa. So like that to me is fine. Like I'm just a body turning into my real body. You know what I mean? Like that to me is not, I don't feel like, oh gosh, I'm, topless in VHS 99. I'm just like, no, I'm Medusa, literally taking my skin off, shedding, if you will, and turning into my true self. And so like, it depends, I think, on the role and what it is, but I think if someone wants to do it, then there's no problem. You know what I mean? I think if you have a conversation with the director and producer, whatever, and you feel safe and comfortable and you have a good contract in place, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think it's totally fine. And I just think it depends on the actor if they want to do it or not.
I'm wondering, does it help in the long term, where if you're in the horror genre, not all films require that, but maybe it helps you get roles because they're like, oh, even if it doesn't require it, we'll hire her for the next project or the next project, and it opens more doors. I don't know.
Well, I'm not sure. I think maybe that was almost a prerequisite in horror before, especially for women to be topless. The 3 B's, blood, boobs, and bullets. There's a lot of those in horror movies. And now I don't think it's as necessary. I'm sure we'll talk about, I did this movie 8 Eyes, and they did want like a nude scene in there. And I was just like, I just don't see why we would need it in here. Like, it's freezing cold. We're outside all the time. I don't think that the character would be. It's, freezing cold outside. And they were like, yeah, that's fine. No problem. Like, it wasn't a big deal. So I think, if I if I think it's right for the part, I will. I don't have any qualms, but I'm not like, oh, I hope I'm topless in this movie.
Well, I do see parallels between your career, at least the beginning, and Barbara Crampton's.
Well, that is
Um, you
so
know, if you look, when you think about it, she's a blonde, a pretty blonde. You're a pretty blonde. She's in Reanimator and From Beyond. Both require nudity. You're Castle Freak, VHS 99. And she just announced she's producing a remake of Tourist Trap. And
all that.
I can see that. I don't know how you go about throwing your, name out there, but that would be cool if you got to be part of that project somehow. Because
That would be amazing. I know. And thank you for saying that. I think she's a lovely human being. I truly, she can do no wrong. I mean, I adore her. She's lovely. And I was very excited when I saw that she was doing Tourist Trap. I was like, that's amazing. So yeah, I mean, hopefully that, talking it out loud here and I brought it up with my representation. And so I know that they're going to keep an eye out on it, but yeah, I mean, that'd be fun. Any horror, I'm always just like, please.
Charles Band was involved with the original. I have no idea if he's part of this one or if the rights switched over, but that would bring you to Full Moon. So
Yeah.
that would be. So you mentioned Eight Eyes. I believe one of the producers is Vinegar Syndrome, which is most people's favorite
Yes.
boutique label. What can you say about that? I know it's not out yet, but it should be coming soon.
Should be coming soon. Yes. That was another just fantastic, wonderful experience. So we shot that all on location in Serbia, Macedonia, and it was on film, because it's Vinegar Syndrome. It was their first production. And so, they like to do things on film. And so that was the first time I'd ever shot on film before in my career, which is, a very unique experience because you really have to trust the people around you. There's no playback, you know what I mean, on film. It's like we shoot it, that's it. So you're trusting your DP, you're trusting your actors, you're trusting your director. Like there's just so much trust involved. But I love that movie. I think it's very well written and very well acted. And Bruno and Brad, the other two actors, are incredible. And I just think it's like a gritty, like grimy story. I love it. I think it's really good. It's a slow burn, and like very 70s vibe. But what I love about it is it's not set in the 70s. Like the background is like, Serbia, and it's cold and winter, and it's on film, and it's grainy and it's gritty. And it just like has the look of a 70s exploitation film. But then, in the scene, I'm on my cell phone. And so you're like, oh yeah, wait, this is like, that's right. It's today. I think they did a great job just, putting everything together.
If you had to pin it down to one genre, what do you think it would fit?
It's certainly horror exploitation. I think it definitely kind of rings true to all of those ties.
So Vinegar Syndrome has all these sub-labels that they release their films. Yours is an original production, so it's going to probably go underneath VSP, Vinegar Syndrome Pictures. And if I had to take an educated guess, maybe they'll wait till their Black Friday sale in November, or maybe sooner would be better. But whatever, it's going to have some amazing packaging. It's the kind of like they just put out the kind of hard box, amazing artwork, slipcover, all that. It's going to be. I mean, do you collect your films and like have them just as
I do.
reference?
I like to have a physical copy of them. And so for VHS and Castle Freak, I have them on DVD and also VHS, which I think is awesome. And I think it's awesome to have VHS 99 on actual cassette. But yeah, no, I do. I have them, and I'm really looking forward to getting Eight Eyes because I agree, Vinegar Syndrome does such a great job. And it was very exciting to work with them as well. And so I can't wait to see what they do with all that packaging is like.
I saw a picture that you posted on Instagram. Did you just do a Hallmark Christmas movie? And can you even talk about it or anything else you you seem to be very busy and go from one project to another. What can you talk about without getting in
Gosh,
trouble?
knock on wood for that. That's I'm hoping to I'm hoping to continue working. Yeah, no, okay, so I was genuinely a little nervous to do a Christmas movie just because I mean, let me start over. I've always wanted to do a Christmas movie. My family has always wanted me to do a Christmas movie. It's like one of those things in, a career like check off, like, oh, I really want to do a Christmas movie. I want to do whatever. So I auditioned for this movie called Jade Frost. And when I booked it, I was over the moon, but then, yeah, I got really nervous. I was like, oh gosh, this is it's like out of my wheelhouse, you know what I mean? To not be screaming and covered in blood and like fighting for my life. And so it was so much fun. It was so much fun. I don't know if it's Hallmark. I'm not sure actually where it's going to go. But it will be out this coming Christmas. So, a few months away. And I'm not exactly sure where it's going to, I think it's digital. It might go to streaming. I'm not exactly sure yet. That always changes. But yeah, I don't know exactly what I'm allowed to say. It's a little different than your typical Christmas movie, is what I'll say. I posted something and I was like, what do you think this movie is about? And it made me laugh so hard that everyone was like, oh, small town girl goes to, blah, 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 or big city girl goes to small town and meets such and such and such. And I was like, interesting. Can't tell you if these are right or wrong, but it is a little different than the typical Christmas movie.
Where can people find you? Do you have a website, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, anything where people can follow you? I will put it in the description either way, but if you happen to know off the top of your head.
Yes. So I am on Twitter and Instagram. Again, I'm awful at social media, but I do have those too. And it's at It's Emily Sweet. So ITSEMILYSWEET.
Well, thank you very much for talking to me. I've admired your work. I own the films that we've talked about and look
Yeah,
forward to what you do in the future. And thank you for your time. And hopefully we'll have you back for your next project and your next
I
project.
would love that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.